And we are back. Welcome to all our viewers that are just tuning in. If you missed our intro and you missed our couch talk, we were talking about a range of things that's happening in the country, the effects that are going to be happening with this Ukraine and Russia dispute, and of course, what's happening with gas and all more. But the man of the hour, the leader of the country, is now here to address a lot of concerns and talk about the meetings that they've been having, because, of course, to lead the country, you must talk and consult with everyone to know what's going to be the plan forward. And so we have Honorable John Briceño here present with us via Zoom. Good morning, PM. How are you feeling?
Hi, good morning, Renata and Sharissa. And I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but the time constraints. So that
the PM fought very hard to try and be here in person, but he has to be on a plane this morning. So we're grateful to have you in any way we can.
We're very thankful for you.
Very much. Thanks for inviting me.
You want to drink some water, PM? You're okay, because your throat sounds like...
Never good. Never start. It's early in the morning.
Okay, just checking. So I guess we're going to start off, hitting the ball running with the first thing to address is just about the retreat that just recently happened. So as you know, the cabinet, took a retreat. I think it was Hidden Valley.
It was Dream Valley.
Dream Valley, my bad. And so you took this retreat, and what do you think were some of the big takeaways from this retreat?
Well, actually, we did not stay at Dream Valley Resort. I think we stayed in the hotel to the front. The Dream Valley Resort to the back is the more fancy one. So I think I just want to make that very clear.
So you stayed at Dream Valley Cousin. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, but I was corrected when I was speaking to one of the Krogsmen, when the meeting was over, and I'm waiting for my vehicle, and they corrected me. So I also need to correct you all. But that's not relevant. More importantly, what we felt that as a cabinet that we need to get out from the cabinet room and to spend some time together as a cabinet to have long discussions on some of the more important issues that are affecting us today, and how we're going to move forward for the next year.
Most definitely.
Usually in cabinet, you have all of these papers, and then by 3-4 o'clock in the evening, people look, you need to go back to your office or try to get back home. So we felt that if we have these long discussions, one, and secondly, that in the evening, during the dinner, we could spend more time as friends and not just working colleagues, and to get to understand one another better, the different perspectives that we have. The perspective that we have in Joak certainly is different than in Belize City, and a lot different in Torino District. So we felt that we needed some of that time. We've been working so hard for the first year, and we had success that nobody expected us to have. So a number of issues. The first thing is the issue of the 10% of the public officers. Our group, the DPM and Minister Fonseca, Minister Henry Charles Osha, met with them last week and had a long discussion looking at the finances of the country. And I must hasten to add that the public officers of the union, they are quite understanding about what we were going through, but also seeing, the finances of the country is in a better position. So obviously they would want to see what we can do to get back their 10% cut. So we generally have agreed that we're looking at how we can do that. If we can give 5% this year or 10%, or should we do the 10% at April 1st or stagger it? So we were looking hard at the numbers and trying to see how best we can do that. Now we have promised the unions that we will not make an announcement before we officially inform them. So we're going to have one more meeting with them to be able to discuss that, to discuss the issue of pension reform. As it is right now, the non-contributory pension, that the contributory pension that the public officers get is costing us is already at about $100 million per year. And by 2025, it will probably be as much as $150 million. It's unsustainable. Wow. So we're looking at that. They have pretty much agreed to do some pension reform. They have also agreed to, we're looking at what kind of other benefits we can give our public officers, all within the scope of maintaining fiscal prudence. So that took a long discussion.
And
So that was the first thing that we discussed.
that's going to be a huge change, isn't it, PM? Because once upon a time, that was the reason to become a public officer, that non-contributory pension that people would believe would really set you up in your old age.
Yeah, but the problem is it's unsustainable. So it's not a matter that there's not going to be nothing for them. We're looking at setting up another pension system or scheme whereby they will contribute something and we contribute something. And so when you combine that with the Social Security, then you'll be better off. Presently, and good for them, there are many instances where public officers retire at 55 after working 20, 25 years with government. With the pension they collect from government and the pension they collect from Social Security, there are many instances where some of these public officers are collecting more than their salary than was when they were working. Point is, it's unsustainable, and we have to fix it. Successive governments have been talking about it in the fringes, but have never sat down to really discuss it. I remember I was way back as 2004. We brought, well, I was talking with it with the Prime Minister, Said Musa at that time, but because of other matters, we could not address it. We need to address it now. It can't wait any longer.
Most definitely. I think what's really important in that conversation, and you mentioned that you were discussing what benefits can be able to be put in place as well. Because like Cherise said, that is something a lot of people, like, you want to be a public officer, you didn't want to go into the private sector because the public sector would provide a pension for you. So you feel like you have somebody have your back in some kind of way. So as you mentioned, it's not like you're eliminating that aspect, but definitely tweaking and seeing how you can be able to make it a little bit more sustainable for the government and see what benefits now can be offered to make it still something that's attractive to those out there.
But remember, it's you and I, and all of you there, and myself, and all of us are paying for this because we have to pay from our taxes. As it is right now, approximately it's about $600 million goes to salaries and pensions, and it's really unsustainable. So, and they recognize, and I'm happy that they recognize it and are prepared to have a serious discussion as to how we can move from the non-contributory pension reform and pension to one where you contribute, where both employer and employee would contribute.
In addition to those changes, Prime Minister, is there going to be a change in the way the recruitment process for public officers takes place? In that, in the past, it would be a large number of people, especially after an election, where people need to be somewhat rewarded for, being captains in the street during the election. What are going to be some of the processes that allow for smaller groups of hirings moving forward for the public officers?
Well, to be fair, this is something that happens in every country. Even in the United States, there's a level that when there's a change in government, they all leave, and then the new administration would bring in their people. In Central America, I mean, when you look at where we are, for instance, I was just informed, Minister Corte told me last week that the entire foreign ministry in Honduras was fired in one day. Everybody. So, when you think we're bad, look around, and it's far worse. Does not mean we cannot fix it. And that has been the criticism from our supporters, because they feel that the UDP stacked up the public service with their supporters, and we have not done enough to hire them.
Yeah.
Is that it is impossible for government to hire everyone. And yes, our supporters feel, we work hard to get you elected. There are these big-time UDPs still in government, having a salary, and we don't have. What we need to do is to concentrate on the economy, to be able to grow the economy. We have been doing a spectacular job by probably the biggest cynic in this country, which is Jules Vasquez, would admit that. I'm just joking with Jules, but seriously, the IMF probably was the biggest cynic, bigger than Jules, was saying that it was impossible what we were going to do. And here in 1 year, we pretty much turned things around.
Yeah.
And even the team leader said, and he said, I could quote, he said, he has never seen something like this done before in any country in the world. He said, but at the same time, we're not out of the woods, because this is what I have to remind our colleagues when we discuss the budget, that we are getting to 2019 levels, but remember in 2019, we were in a recession.
Yeah.
We're not in good times. So we're still, in a hole getting out. So the discussion give me a good chance to segue into discussion about the budget. We had a long discussion on the budget. I have to remind our colleagues, when we look at the amount of capital 2 and capital 3 spending that they wanted to do was over $400 million. And we said, guys, I know you're excited. You want to implement Plan Belize, but we don't have it. We have to be fiscally prudent in how we're going to spend. And that is why then we decided that we have to ensure that the budget will be looking now at the social aspects of the of governance. We have to look at education, the food, grocery program that we do, housing, education, these steps that have a direct impact on the lives of people. And so we had that long discussion, and we managed to tweak it down somewhat, but without losing sight of what we need to do. We've also agreed to increase the budget for youths and sports. We're saying we want to do increase it right now, capped by $2 million, and then also looking at coming up with what we call a gambling tax, whereby the taxes from that can be aligned to be able to do social programs, and also try to come up with more sports programs and more programs for young people.
And that tax would be for things like Bolido? So wouldn't be now taxing?
For Bolido, Scratch 5, and Give Me 5. I don't know all the names of the I buy. So,
interesting.
I've never won the Bolido because, I don't buy the Bolido. I think I buy a lot of lottery, the roughly when it comes to your house, and so I buy a lot of them, but I've never won. So, maybe that's not.
You're not got a good luck, man.
I know the feeling. And then PM, also during the cabinet retreat, there was many people say we know here that there was a unannounced rise in the gas price, but I'm sure you were right there in the cabinet retreat fighting through this gas issue, which has only been made harder by the global issues taking place now. How were you even trying to negotiate getting that gas price to any measurable level?
Clarice, I appreciate what you were saying earlier, that we Belizeans look at things differently. We go outside, and we don't mind pay $5 US for a burger. But right there at Belize, $3, they already holla, hey, the burger too expensive. Or with Uber, wonderful example. You take an Uber and you pay $16, $20. But right here, poor taxi man, they charge you $68 and you scream out loud. Now, I know that we're going through a very difficult time, but the issue of fuel, we simply have no control. Up to 2020, when we got into government, the government was taxing fuel to the tune of about 48%. Right now, we're down to 37%. And what we did right now is trying to hold down the diesel, and I think we will increase it, I think, only by 50%. 50 cents.
Yeah.
The prices, it should have been $1. We try to hold it down, but eventually it will have to go up. There's no running away from that. As much as I wish we can do something about it. Remember, fuel, we get about approximately $150 million a year of fuel. If we take off $1 from the tax, we are writing off $30 million. And even $1 people say it's too high. But remember, if you take, let's say we were to take off $2, we're looking at about $60 million. And then we're giving the government employees their 10% raise. That's another $60+ million. You're looking at $120 million that we have to find. I know it sounds like a lot of numbers. The point is that we're trying our very best to hold down the cost as best as we possibly can, but Russia not making it any easier for us.
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's a hard situation, and I know that people just have to understand that there's nothing much that we can do, because before Russia even got into this situation, there was prices going up. because we're understanding the market is changing. And then now thinking about all the uncertainty and that what's happening presently, I think we really have to see how we as a country can be able to maneuver through what's presently unavoidable for everyone to deal with. So, Prime
We just
Minister,
have to be more careful how we drive around, how we move around, and walk. I know it's hot, but walking also in some short distances is good. And I know some people want to say, oh, you have a vehicle, but I do walk. I walk here in Orange Rock a lot of times, unless when I'm in a hurry, then you drive. But the point is, we just need to try to do as best as we can what we have. But there's another part, a very important discussion that we have, and there's a strong sense within cabinet that we need to do some sort of constitutional reform. Here we are, 40 years later from independence, and need to look at, are we satisfied with the governance that we have? The Constitution has been designed almost around two dominant political parties. And you have the PUP and the UDP. And these are things that we need to question and look at the structures that we have in governance. We need to review them. We set up these structures in a different era. Here we are now 40 years later. The world is changing. Technology has been changing everything. There's a feeling that we need to deepen the democracy within our country. There's a feeling there has to be more participation by people in governing. Because the truth is that once a party is elected, they're there for 5 years. And in some instances, they could do almost whatever they wish, and there's not much that we can do unless we go on a revolution and use the military, which is something that we would never want to have, or to have civil unrest, and people get killed. That's not the direction Belize wants to go. So we need to find how we can have a more, like I said, deepening the governance, finding ways how people can feel that they have a say in the decisions of the government. So we believe that we're talking about setting up a People's Constitutional Commission. I know we've been talking about it since September last year, but we had a lengthy discussion in cabinet, and so we will be shortly setting that up, include both political parties, include the private sector, include social partners, the NGO communities, and so that we can have a discussion. And we want to target it, say, have 1 year of discussions, and then like another 3 months or between 3 and 6 months to put that together, and then to present it to the government, to cabinet, and to the people. So that's also something very, very important. That's a lot of discussion during the retreat.
And I think what was good, PM, is that you guys had a chance to sit down, have that retreat, air out Belize's issues ahead of what we want to move into next, which is the 33rd Intercessional. So you come away from that cabinet retreat with a good holistic picture of what Belize's goals are going into this broader meeting. Talk to us about that and your role as chairperson for the CARICOM 33rd Intercessional.
Well, certainly, President Belize is the pro tempore president of CARICOM, and we try to meet at least once every 6 months. And this is the first time that we will meet face to face since the pandemic in 2020. Well, it's almost 2 years, 2022. So there are things but we have a long history with the Caribbean islands. I mean, we have the same colonial masters. We have pretty much the same system of governance. And we have the same issues that are affecting us. Obviously, the first thing is the issue of the COVID-19, its response and recovery. Here in Belize, we worked hard to get the vaccinations for all of our citizens, and we've been pushing very hard, and we've passed the 50% target. I think WHO put a target of 40%. We've reached just at about 50% of our population that have gotten the vaccine. And now we want to look at, okay, we're starting to move away from all the rules and regulations that we had during COVID to not to post-COVID. And COVID is going to be around. It's not going anywhere. So now we need to learn to live with it. Here in Belize, as I said, our public health campaign has been fairly successful, pretty much successful in educating people, making them aware the issue of wearing the mask and the social distancing, washing your hands, and vaccinating yourself. But no more and more people are feeling that it is a time now that we need to move the responsibility from the state to the person itself, to personal responsibility. We will still continue to be able to provide the vaccines. We will still continue to educate people. But we need to start to open up the economy. And that's what CARICOM is talking about. And the same thing with us in Belize. Pretty soon we'll be making some announcements. I think this probably today or tomorrow, where we'll be pretty much moving away from a lot of the regulations that we have, the testing, but insisting on vaccinations, that you need to get vaccinated to leave the country. And maybe start to say, well, if you're not vaccinated, you can't get into certain places. It's time for restaurants to be able to open. It's time for the entertainment industry to start to get back to work. They've been going through a very difficult time. So we were going to be talking about the response and the recovery from CARICOM. Secondly, the issue of climate change. Climate change affects each and every one of us, especially in the region. We have droughts, we don't have rain when we're supposed to have rain. We have rain when we're not to have rain. We have hurricanes, and it's having a direct impact on us in the Caribbean. And it is something that we did not create. It is the developed countries that created that. And as we've been saying, and I said this out loud in Glasgow at COP26, we don't want to talk about adaptation. We want to talk about mitigation. Adaptation, by adaptation, that means that a lot of the coastline of Belize is going to be underwater. And adaptation means that quite likely parts of our corals, we're going to be losing part of the coral reef because of the water, it changes salinity and the temperatures. So we want to talk about trying to do mitigation in trying to keep the temperatures at no more than 1.5% Celsius. 1.5 degrees Celsius to go up. We need to keep it there, but it seems that it's going to go beyond that. But the most frustrating things from developing countries like ourselves in the Caribbean is that the developed countries are creating this. They're claiming that they're going to help us to make the whatever adaptations that we have, but they don't give us the money. And that's when I lashed out at them and I said, we are doing our part. You are not doing our part. You need to make the monies available for us to be able to make the necessary changes for people and to help us with mitigation. So climate change is going to be a big matter. And the issue of financing for development. COVID has hit every country in the world hard, but especially in small developing countries. In Belize, before COVID, the poverty rate was already at 50% in 2018 under the UDP. And the estimates are right now that COVID is probably at 60%. And it is something that is also cannot have almost 2/3 of our people living in poverty. But we need to have access to financing to be able to invest in education, to invest in national health insurance, to invest in our infrastructure, to create opportunities for our people. People now are big. People want to work. Once they are working, they don't have to be able to be, or they are begging from anybody. So financing for development is also something very important.
Can we zone in on something here in terms of, because you're speaking about opening up the economy, and I want to talk about the wider CARICOM economy. I know that another issue on the agenda is going to be CSME, and when we had the Minister of Foreign Affairs here last week, he told us that Prime Minister Motley has been very aggressive about telling Caribbean countries, this is what you've done well towards CSME, and this is what you're lacking. Now, I'm sure Belize got one of those letters. I don't know if you could share with us what Belize is lacking in moving toward that Caribbean single market.
But for Belize, the frustration is that CSME is very important, and we are totally committed towards trying to have a single market and economy. We have been changing in immigration, allowing our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean to be able to come in if they want, easy in and out, and even to be able to work. But for instance, in getting our products sold in the rest of the Caribbean, the more developed or the bigger economies in the Caribbean, Trinidad, Jamaica, and Barbados to a lesser extent, already have their industries, and they do everything to protect it. Let's take a look at sugar. We know for a fact that they're not buying our sugar. And under the CMSE, they should be buying our sugar. And so they get exemptions from CARICOM and then be able to bring sugar from other areas cheaper. It's not cheaper if they have to pay. I think it's a 40% tariff they should pay. But if they were to pay the tariff, it would not have been cheaper than our sugar. Look at the issue of chicken. Caribbean chicken have been trying to get their chicken sold into the Caribbean. But the problem is that a lot of the established businesses in the Caribbean, they go to the United States and buy chicken that's probably has a shelf life of maybe 1 or 2 months left, and they buy it cheap. And when we can sell it. So we in Belize have this frustration because we can be the food basket for the Caribbean. We can provide pretty much all of the food, but the businesses, not the government, make it difficult for us. So we need to start to think less. We have to be less selfish and be able to work as a unit, because then as a unit, as a group, our economy is much bigger than individually. And then by doing that, then we can truly move into what we call a single market and economy for the Caribbean.
Most definitely. Prime Minister, in regards to that, I'm just looking at, for us having the private sector play a more crucial role in having us develop, open up jobs and so forth. As you know, right now, we're looking at the present situation with Russia, Ukraine, prices are going up. It's a lot harder to generate profits to a level where people can be able to invest in their businesses. So will the government in that regards look and have a discussion about how more grants can be offered to businesses, small businesses, and see where you can look and see how you can make it just a little bit easier to venture into the world of work and venture into being an entrepreneur? Because I think right now, especially with how things are going when it comes to our cost to import things and just to be able to know how prices are going up when it comes to oil and all that, it's just a lot for business owners to look at and see how they can maybe open up a job for somebody else or so. So is that something that you're going to be looking at?
Well, certainly we have been doing that as we speak. And right now, the Ministry of Tourism, through with BTB, have made monies available, and there have been applicants for these monies to try to help them in recovery. It is being managed between BTB, BTIA, and IDB. We have a special window for small entrepreneurs at the DFC and at this. I think also at the Belize, the National Bank. So we're doing everything possible, but free money is not there. There's no such thing as free money, as much as we'd want to. But whenever we can offer small grants, we do our best. That's what we're doing with the housing, for instance, right now. Government is financing about between 60 and 70% of the cost of the house that we are providing to our citizens. And they, in return, would pay $25 a week for 10 years, and then they will be able to own a one-bedroom, well-built cement house. So we're finding ways as best as we possibly can. But remember, our fiscal space or the amount of monies that we have available is very, very limited.
Yeah.
And so we need to be able to find how best we can do that. And one of the best ways we can do it is to find ways how we can reduce the interest rates that the banks are charging.
Yes.
And we're in constant discussions with them. We're in constant discussions with them and trying to be able to see how we can get to reduce the finance. There's a lot of liquidity in the system as we speak, but yes, I believe the interest that they charge is still pretty high.
Wow. Prime Minister, thank you so much for being with us. We know that you have a very, very busy day ahead, and you need to start getting a move on to get on a plane. But it's been so enlightening talking to you about all these topics, and very good luck in your role as chairperson for this 33rd Heads of Government Intercessional.
But thanks to both of you also for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak about that, because also what is very important, we did not have the time, and it's my fault because I have a limited time. I said that that also SICA will be coming into Belize.
Yes,
The
We do.
heads of governments from the Caribbean, from Central America, the presidents. Several presidents along or their vice presidents will be coming to Belize on Thursday. We have Antonio Gutierrez, the Secretary General of the UN, is going to be visiting Belize. Is going to be addressing. They're going to be addressing the joint CARICOM SICA summit that we're going to have. It's something that has not happened in 11 years, that we have not met as two regional bodies, and trying to find ways how we can work together with both regions, that if you could join these two regions as one to speak in one voice, then our voice becomes so much louder and could have so much more impact in what we do and in what we say. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and got to get to work. Thanks.
There's a lot happening, but again, thank you so much, PM, for being here. We truly appreciate, and we know you guys definitely have a lot on your plate moving forward right now. There's a lot of meetings going on, and we're looking forward to hearing about what are the outcomes and what are other Caribbean countries committing to, and just the discussion in general. So best of luck with everything that you guys are doing, and safe travels to San Pedro.
Thank you very much. All the best.
And with that, we go to our next commercial break. When we're back, we're going to be talking to the Belize Coast Guard. And so stay tuned for that exciting conversation. We'll be right back.